I've been an Airbnb host for quite a while now, and in that time I've welcomed all sorts of people into my home. Most guests are exactly what you'd expect. They arrive, settle into their room, stay the night, maybe leave a review, and then continue with their journey. Even when something goes wrong, there's usually a simple explanation. But every now and then, something happens that stays with you because you just can't make sense of it. This happened only a couple of days ago, and the more I think about it, the stranger it seems. I'm genuinely hoping that someone reading this has experienced something similar, because at the moment, I have absolutely no explanation for it. What makes it even stranger is that this wasn't the first unusual booking I'd had that week. A few days earlier, another man had contacted me about booking one of my rooms. His messages immediately caught my attention because he didn't actually want somewhere to stay overnight. Instead, he wanted to use the room from around 9 in the morning until 10 at night. That struck me as odd because Airbnb is generally used for overnight accommodation, not somewhere to spend the day. He didn't tell me why he was coming, he just asked me a question about booking. And when I agreed to it, he moved on to the next revealing question. He then asked whether it would be okay to have a barbecue. When I hesitantly agreed, he then wanted to know whether the internet connection was good. None of those questions are suspicious on their own, but something about the conversation made me uncomfortable. I can't really explain why. It was just one of those gut feelings you sometimes get. I politely told him that I didn't think my place was suitable for what he wanted. In fact, I told him twice that I didn't want to host him. Despite that, a little while later, he booked anyway through Instant Book, telling me that he really needed my place. I ended up cancelling the reservation, and although Airbnb later charged me for doing so, I still felt it was the right decision. I put the whole thing down to an awkward booking and tried not to think about it anymore. Then, only a few days later, another reservation came in. This time it was from a couple. The man messaged me asking whether my house was far from Longford, even though Airbnb had already automatically sent him the exact address immediately after he booked. He asked if he could come straight away, and I said that was absolutely fine. While he was on his way, he sent another message saying, "I'm coming now." A little later, he sent, "Hi." I didn't reply immediately because I was busy, and Airbnb gives hosts plenty of time to respond. A few minutes later, he sent another, "Hey," as though he expected an instant reply. Again, not a huge deal on its own, but it was another little thing that felt slightly unusual. Eventually, he arrived with a woman. They came together in a private car, avoided eye contact, checked in, and everything seemed perfectly normal. We showed them upstairs to their room, wished them a pleasant stay, and left them to settle in. Only a couple of minutes later, my husband realized that I'd only left one towel in the room, so he took another towel upstairs, knocked on the door, and offered it to them. The man didn't open the door and said he didn't need it. The woman then said she would take it. She opened the door slightly, grabbed the towel, and shut the door again. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal, but looking back, it almost felt as though they had already decided they weren't staying. About 10 minutes later, they got back into the car and drove away. The strange part is that they never came back. The following morning, after the checkout time had passed, we went upstairs and the room immediately caught my attention. The bed throw had been deliberately crumpled, but it didn't look as though anyone had actually slept in it, as the duvet was still folded underneath in the way I had made it. The towels had been scrunched up but were dry and didn't appear to have been used. The shower and sink hadn't been used either. Someone had put toilet paper into the toilet, but the toilet water was clean. The complimentary muesli bar had been opened, half-eaten, with crumbs scattered across the plate, and a few small things had been moved around the room to make it look they spent the whole night there. For example, they opened the sugar jar and put the lid back on the wrong way, so it looked like it had been used, but they never used the sugar. The whole place gave me the odd impression that somebody had spent a few minutes making it look as though they had stayed overnight without actually staying there. This is probably the strangest guest experience I've ever had, and I still have no idea what really happened.